You are listening to The Hero's Journey. I'm Jeff Garvin.
And I'm Dan Zarzana.
Let the journey begin. Hey everyone, welcome to The Hero's Journey, where Dan and I discuss your favorite books and films through the lens of Joseph Campbell's monomyth, as well as Chrisopher Vogler's modern cinema-focused adaptation.
That was awkward.
The writers, because I thought, whoa, he's good. I forgot. Didn't say the hero with 1,000 faces, so I was gonna continue with the writer's journey, but then I realized that would defy the parallel structure you'd set up in the script. Just stop talking.
Jeff, I am terrified about this episode, but I'm also looking forward to discussing it.
Oh, why are you terrified?
When I was learning basic programming principles, my instructor once told me that a computer is like a toddler, lacking critical thought. You can ask a toddler, go get me a bottle of water. But unless you instruct the toddler to also bring that bottle of water back to you, an hour will go by and you'll go into the kitchen to find the fridge door standing open and your bottle of water sitting on the floor. You have to provide that toddler with a series of actions in the sequence you want those actions performed. And a computer is very much the same way. But what if a computer could be developed to recognize the nuances of language such that with the statement, go get me a bottle of water from the fridge, it understands the implied instruction and bring it back to me? Now, some might say that's all you've done with the toddler as well.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is conceptual understanding. Granted, this is a gross oversimplification of the problem, but it is a starting point. It's one of the early questions posed by computer scientists attempting to develop artificial intelligence. And it's the question in its simplest form posed by the films in this month's poll. So, Jeff, what do our computer overlords say about how that poll worked out?
Well, I'm imagining now the toddler coming back and like pinning me down and stuffing the bottle of water down my esophagus, because that's sort of what ends up happening in these films. So in third place, with only 6% of the vote, AI Artificial Intelligence, directed by Steven Spielberg, his finishing of an incomplete project by Stanley Kubrick, his hero.
Yeah, that one might have just been too on the nose. Like, hey, everybody, the theme for this month is artificial intelligence. One of your choices is artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I wonder if iRobot would have had a better shot.
Spike Jonze's 2013 film, Her, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson, took second place with 17% of the vote.
Personally, I was rooting for Her because I've never seen it, and this would have been a great opportunity for me to see it.
That's a really good one. You should see that movie. It's disturbing and brilliant. And the winner of the poll in a bona fide landslide was Ex Machina, which claimed 78% of the vote.
Ex Machina is written and directed by Alex Garland, a filmmaker who is high on my interest list. If I see his name on a project, I sit up and pay attention. He began his film career writing Danny Boyle films. The Beach, which was also based on his novel. 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, Sunshine. I love that one.
Yeah, such a good, crazy, weird movie.
Ex Machina is Garland's directorial debut. He then went on to write and direct Annihilation, based on Jeff Vandermeer's novel, and then 2022's Men. So far, though, none of his directorial efforts have been big box office successes, which is a real shame because his stories are so fascinating to me, thought-provoking. I really dig Alex Garland's work. He's exciting.
This movie is top 5 movies of all time for me. I love Alex Garland. I read The Beach, a few years after college, and that book stunned me because it was Apocalypse Now, Heart of Darkness. It was
Lord of the Flies.
It was so brilliantly written. And so I looked for everything else. And at that time, he hadn't directed anything else. And he wrote another novel called The Tesseract, which takes place mostly in the Philippines. And it's a very convoluted, weird story. And I love his mind. The only thing I haven't seen that he's done is Men, that just came out. I really want to see that. But Devs, if you liked this movie, Go check out Devs. It's creepy and funny, and it stars Soyona Mizuno, and she's incredible. Okay.
I just finished the season finale of Devs yesterday. Check that one off my list.
Good. So I
really enjoyed it.
I'll stop gushing. Ex Machina stars Domhnall Gleeson, Oscar Isaac, Academy Award winner Alicia Vikander. She won Best Performance by a Female Actor in a Supporting Role for The Danish Girl in 2016. The cast of Ex Machina includes just 14 people.
Yeah.
Only 4 of whom have lines. And 4 of those 14 have appeared in Star Wars films.
Ex Machina was released wide on April 24th, 2015. Really underperformed considering it shared theaters with the 7th Fast and Furious film and Avengers Age of Ultron. Ouch. Jeff, even Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 outperformed Ex Machina by a wide margin, which really makes me question the American film-going audience. I'm so disappointed. Throughout its theatrical run, Ex Machina earned just $37 million against its $15 million budget.
The film did earn attention for 2 Academy Awards, though. Alex Garland earned a nod for Best Original Screenplay, though the trophy went to Spotlight. The visual effects team of Ex Machina, led by Andrew Whitehurst, Paul Norris, Mark Williams Ardington, and Sarah Bennett, did win the Academy Award for Best Achievement in Visual Effects.
That is quite an upset, considering your competition is Mad Max Fury Road, The Revenant, The Martian, and Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Wow. Imagine sitting there in the back of that theater and assuming the Star Wars team is going to win, and then your name gets called for this little think piece film that suffered such a disappointing box office.
I was thinking and reading about that upset. And one theory was that the visual effects in Ex Machina are essentially character-based. They're not background, they're not world building. It's showing the machine part of this character. And I think that may have been such a powerful thing, especially for the actors in the Academy who were voting, to see, wow, this is a way that visual effects can enhance human performance. That was then, Dan. This is now. This entire intro was written by ChatGPT, and we read it live as it was being written. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, man, that hurts, dude. That hurts.
Whether the film was a victim of box office scheduling or just too cerebral for its time, it's one of my favorite motion pictures of all time. And I look forward to raving about it incessantly while I try to squeeze in little moments of analysis.
That's why I'm terrified of today's recording.
You're terrified of editing this recording. That's right. So plug in, power up, and log on. This is the hero's journey of Ex Machina.
Act 1 of the hero's journey begins with the world of Common Day. This is where we see our main character in their status quo, normal life. Before we go any farther, before I say another syllable, I want to issue a spoiler alert.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not watched Ex Machina, I strongly suggest you go watch it. It's currently on HBO Max. I think if you have Showtime on cable, it's on Showtime. Go to your local library and rent the DVD if you have to. This is such a fascinating film. The first time I saw it, I was on an airplane. Not the greatest environment to be watching this movie, especially given that there are multiple long scenes of full frontal female nudity.
It's just like, oh God.
So when that popped up, when those scenes happened, I was like, oh God. And I'm like holding my hands over the screen, like looking around, hoping there's no kids sitting in my vicinity.
Oh, the young man next to me is watching the pornography on a plane.
Why is this movie available on an airplane when there's that content? All right. Spoiler alert over. Go watch Ex Machina. Come on back. Hi, welcome back. We're so glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed Ex Machina. Act 1, Jeff, I think is a delicious blended smoothie. The elements are mixed together. Some lines of dialogue fulfill multiple steps of the hero's journey.
Yes, I completely
agree. That's how I felt. I was so confused by Act 1 of this. Not confused by where Act 1 begins and ends, but just I would be like, oh, here's this part. And then 5 minutes later, oh, wait, no, that there it is again. Oh, wait, hang on. And then, it was just crazy. So
our hero is being effed with by everyone in this movie the entire film. And so the film is ahead of the audience and it's ahead of the main character. So I think the elements coming mixed and out of order and upside down here is intentional to put us and the hero off course. Like, you don't know what's going to happen because this movie isn't showing up to you like a movie is supposed to show up. That's one of the things I love about it.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought it was just because Alex Garland is such a tight writer.
Yeah.
That he knows how to deliver a line of dialogue that fulfills multiple elements of the hero's journey. Okay, let's get into it. Caleb Smith, played by Domhnall Gleeson. This is son of Brendan Gleeson, 3-time appearee on the Hero's Journey podcast.
How did I not connect that they were related? Oh, duh. Of course.
Father Brendan was in Braveheart, Gangs of New York, and Edge of Tomorrow. So, Domhnall Gleeson's Caleb Smith is a talented programmer for a tech company called Blue Book, developer of a search engine that, given information shared later in the film, seems to have overtaken Google in terms of market share. We see brief images of Caleb's office space, open floor plan. It's pretty standard for tech companies these days, it seems like. Open floor plan, community workspaces. There's a giant aquarium in the middle. It's got playful lighting. It's not just that white, yellow, fluorescent, vibrating light that all the rest of us who work in offices have to deal with. It's, blue and green lights, and it's just fun. Glass walls, all kinds of stuff. Caleb's at his desk working on his computer. Suddenly a message pops up. First prize. We don't know what this means. And again, there's no dialogue. We don't know what the prize is, but suddenly Caleb is aboard a private helicopter flying over this giant glacier and then over a forest. The fish out of water scenario is now established. When Caleb asks the pilot,
"How long until we get to his estate?"
And the pilot laughs and says,
"We've been flying over his estate for the past 2 hours.
What?
Yeah.
This dude owns a nation.
Yeah.
That is a massive piece of land that this guy owns.
Yeah.
The pilot leaves Caleb in a grassy meadow in the middle of a mountain forest and tells him, "This is as close as I'm allowed to get to the building. Follow the river."
Yeah.
Caleb does as he is instructed, arrives at his destination. We only see glimpses of a building or buildings hidden within this mountain forest. And the sound is what struck me the most here. All we hear are songbirds, babbling river, and breeze whispering through the leaves. No sounds of human civilization whatsoever. At this point, I wanted to turn the film off and go for a hike.
Aww.
Suddenly, a computerized voice instructs
Caleb Smith.
Yes?
Please approach the console and face the screen.
He does so as instructed, and he's glimpsing this little funny moment. He's glimpsing into the panel. He's like, what is going on? Yeah, like squinting. He's got this like scrunchy look on his face, and suddenly a camera flash bursts in his eyes, and a metal engraved key card engraved with this scrunchy faced image that he was just making is spit out of the console. The front door automatically unlocks, and the computer voice tells him, "You now have access to the residence." The very first time I did this analysis, I thought the first prize pop-up on his computer was the call to adventure, because it is what gets him on the helicopter. But I don't think the real call to adventure happens just yet.
Yeah.
So Caleb starts walking around this house, and it is beautiful. It is a modern home carved into the side of this mountain or hillside.
Yeah, there's natural rock in the home protruding from the outside, so it's like an integrated, it's this crazy house.
The home has built to incorporate nature, not invade nature.
He's integrated natural and manufactured phenomenon. It's kind of what he's about, right? He invades life with his technology, and he allows life into his technology.
Right. Very representative, yeah. It is a good clue about what we're about to see happen. Caleb hears the sounds of a heavy bag being punched. Foo, 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 foo. He follows that sound, and there he meets Nathan, played by Oscar Isaac, the founder of Blue Book. And Nathan tells Caleb that he's been looking forward to this week with him. So now we've got a ticking clock. We know there's 1 week of time that we are about to experience. And I thought of The Shining in this moment.
There are a lot of parallels to The Shining in this film. It kept coming up for me as I was watching it. The isolation of the place, all of that.
At this time, we hear an important plot point established, although we don't know it yet. Nathan says that he had intended for them to have breakfast together, but after a heavy night of drinking, he compensates with exercise and antioxidants. That was the end of the world of Common Day for me. That's where I drew the line.
Love it. That brings us to Call to Adventure. The hero is presented with a challenge which renders them unable to continue living in the comfort of the ordinary world. By my measure, this first act is, well, I'm not going to call the minute count out yet, but it's very short and it's very fast. And you're right. The elements are concurrent. They are recurrent. And they are implied. He's just, this story drives. So yeah, the first thing we see is him get this email, you won the lottery. For sure, that's part of a call to adventure. The real call to adventure comes a few minutes later when Nathan tells Caleb, I've built an AI and you're going to be the human component in the Turing test of this AI. But there's another call to adventure that happens before that, which is Nathan slides this document across the table and says, before I tell you anything, before I even call you to this adventure, you must sign this NDA. And because the signing of that NDA is so crucial to the rest of Act 1, I'm going to call those three elements, the employee, winning the employee lottery, being told you're going to be the human component in a Turing test of my new AI design, and sign this NDA. To me, those are the three prongs of the call to adventure that bring Caleb into this special world, not the special world of Nathan's house, which I agree is really part of the Common Day, because we see nothing of Caleb before that moment in the office. And really that's just establishing where he came from and why he's here. You could have started the movie with the helicopter landing, but those are the things I would point out as call to adventure.
I agree. I want to switch two of your statements. Nathan does not tell Caleb about the AI until after he has signed the NDA. He's not going to divulge that information. I just wanted to make it clear because you had said he tells him, I've built an AI and you have to sign this NDA.
Oh, sorry. You're right. Yeah.
Those are reversed.
The extraordinary barrier here is I won't even tell you what the adventure is until you cross the threshold, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These crucial parts of Act 1 are all in the same scene.
Yeah.
All out of order.
And it's a great
really
setup because it keeps you behind the eight ball of what's happening in this movie, and it also, you immediately know the character is taking this leap of faith that is almost certainly going to go wrong. So from phase 2 of the journey, you're going, oh no, this is not, oh bad.
Okay. Yes, I agree with you on those
good.
points.
Good.
The next segment of the journey is the refusal of the call. Confronted with fear of the unknown, the hero refuses the call to adventure, or sometimes outside forces restrain the hero. I think in some respects, the non-disclosure agreement itself is a refusal of the call to adventure. Caleb's reluctance to sign it is refusal from within the hero.
Right.
He reads part of this NDA out loud. It is so invasive.
The signee agrees to regular data audit with unlimited access to confirm that no disclosure of information has taken place in public or private forums using any means of communication, including, but not limited to, that which is disclosed orally or in written or electronic form. I think I need a lawyer.
It's standard.
It doesn't feel very standard.
Okay, it's not standard.
So understandably, Caleb is extremely uncomfortable with this non-disclosure agreement. And Nathan tells him, okay, you don't have to sign it. We could just spend the week shooting pool and bonding. But when you discover what you've missed out on in about a year, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. Those are the elements of refusal.
That brings us to meeting with the mentor, where the hero receives counsel on how to operate in the special world, also known as supernatural aid, the unexpected assistance that comes to one who has undertaken their proper adventure. Now, you were about to point out the fact that Nathan telling him, if you don't do this, you're going to regret it, is mentorship of a kind.
Correct.
Like most of the mentorship in this film, it is manipulative, but I agree.
Yep.
So in terms of how to operate in the special world, Nathan gives Caleb a tour of his facility and shows him that key card that he's already been given. That key card is a talisman that will allow him to enter certain parts of the labyrinth and not others. And it's a great setup. Oscar Isaac's performance is so great. You're in somebody's house, you're freaked out, like, oh, we're gonna go, we're gonna not go. This solves it. The door goes red, it's off limits. If it turns blue, it's for you. Already, though he's taking on this air of being magnanimous and generous and open, he's just intimidating and creepy. And so then he takes Caleb into his bedroom, and it's like, hey, you have a bed, and there's a bathroom, like pointing out these obvious, like you don't need someone to point out the bed.
Yeah.
But then he goes, but I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. It's not cozy. It's uncomfortable. No, I'm not. That's not what I'm thinking. There's no windows. Well, I'll tell you why there are no windows, because it's underground and the walls are crammed with fiber optic cables. So this is all symbolic of keeping Caleb in the dark. He's literally surrounded by technology, shielded by technology, being blocked out from the outside world.
The rest of that statement is, this is not a house, it's a research facility.
Right. And by extension, you are not a guest, you are research. Watching this movie after analyzing it is so powerful, because every single line, every single scene has all the evidence you need to know what's going to happen before it happens. Like, there's nothing hidden from the audience. And it's so powerful to watch it again, almost like The Sixth Sense, where you go, oh, of course, yes, I see it now. And just like we had talked about things being out of order, I think there's mentorship throughout the movie, but another crucial moment of early mentorship to me happens in essentially what is Act 2 of the film. And it's after Caleb's first session, after meeting Ava. So they're debriefing from this meeting. And Caleb is describing his interaction on an analytical level, and it's the AI is this kind of system, and I thought it was this kind of system. And Nathan says, don't be analytical. Disengage your intellect and just tell me how you feel. He's telling Caleb that the real Turing test isn't to put Ava behind a door and see if you can think she's human. You would. The real test is to show you that she's a robot and then see if he still feels like she has consciousness. To me, that is crucial for two reasons. One, because he's revealing to us and to the audience what the real Turing test is here. Well, it is the real Turing test. It really, really is. It's just the opposite of what we think it is, right? And then the other thing that he's saying is, I'm going to take your intellect apart and manipulate you emotionally. That's really the most honest piece of mentorship he gives in the whole movie. It still has a nefarious motivation, but it's one of the few things he's not deceptive about. Over and over in the film, he says, stop being analytical, tell me how you feel. So I know that skips ahead into essentially what would be Act 2, but as I replayed this film to analyze it, I thought that piece of mentorship is a hinge upon which the success of the rest of the journey depends. So I wanted to put a pin in it in mentorship.
All right, final segment of Act 1 is crossing the first threshold. The hero must pass a barrier to enter the special world, and this crossing represents the hero's commitment to taking on the adventure. Signing the non-disclosure agreement is the most committed Caleb can get about this adventure.
Yeah.
That is the barrier. You don't sign the NDA, you don't go on the rest of the adventure. All you do is play pool and drink with your boss for a week, and then you go home, and nothing changes.
Yeah, totally agree.
As Nathan reveals to Caleb that he's going to be the human component of a Turing test, Nathan says,
You are dead center of the greatest scientific event in the history of man.
And Caleb counters with,
If you've created a conscious machine, it's not the history of man. That's the history of gods.
That brings us into the second act.
12
Very
minutes.
clean division from Act 1 into Act 2.
Yeah.
I love it when filmmakers do that. It makes our job so much easier.
Yeah. All right. Well, I need some coffee, so let's sidle over to the Campbell Cafe for some side quests.
Hey folks, welcome to the Camp Bell Cafe, where Jeffy Pants and I have a cup of coffee, talk about some other side quests that we have undertaken recently. What have you been up to, Jeff?
I guess it's relevant to talk about ChatGPT briefly in this side quest. My guess is that everyone who listens to our podcast knows about ChatGPT. If you haven't, just Google it really quickly. In experimenting with ChatGPT, I asked it to do two things. I asked it to write a sonnet about being the lead singer in an 80s cover band. It composed this sonnet that was pretty close to sonnet form in terms of syllable count and rhyme scheme, and it was all about new wave and pop. It was really disturbingly accurate. And then in the last verse and then the final couplet, it put in this emotional twist of like, but I wish I could have my own sound.
Whoa.
So it was like so creepy. And then I asked it to summarize my debut novel, Symptoms of Being Human, in a limerick. And it did so with frightening acumen. So I'm in a little bit of an existential crisis as a writer right now, and it's because of ChatGPT. I'll post screenshots on the website for those of you who are interested. So the side quest that I enjoyed, I was randomly selected as a Screen Actors Guild nominating committee member for this year. So I've been getting an unprecedented number of screeners, and I received a Blu-ray disc of The Banshees of Inisherin, which is a film written and directed by Martin McDonagh, who did In Bruges, among another handful of amazing films.
Yeah.
And it stars the same two stars of In Bruges, Brendan Gleeson, father of this movie's star, Domhnall Gleeson, and Colin Farrell. So it's these two men in the early 1920s in a remote island off the coast of Ireland. And one day, Brendan Gleeson's character decides he's not friends with his best friend anymore and just cold turkey cuts him off and won't speak to him. And so it's about the ripples and the impact of this sudden change on the characters in this small island town, and the emotional transformation and the reckoning with death and who are you and what is your life. And it was just a very unusual story. It had some elements of fairy tale to where you go, okay, that's not, some of the things are kind of beyond the pale of reasonable, normal fiction. And so it really took me, usually 10, 15 minutes into a movie, you've gotten familiar with the world of the film and the conceits of the movie, and you kind of know what's going to go on. Like, oh, okay, there's magic and people have powers, or, it was 45, 50 minutes into this film where I went, oh, I think I understand the kind of movie I'm seeing now. And then the ending, while very satisfying on one level, was completely dissatisfying on another. And what I walked away with was, that's art, and somebody wrote it and directed it exactly the way they felt it in their heart. And parts of it really resonated with me and others didn't. And I was just so grateful that somebody got to make a movie like that and get it to the point where it was in my mailbox to be considered for an award. And so I guess my side quest this month was being grateful that things that I don't necessarily 100% love can get made in the world, because that's where frontiers get pushed. So I liked the movie, but I liked what it was even more, if that makes sense. So if you have 2.5 hours and you're open to a new kind of experience that isn't necessarily going to leave you walking out of the theater going, that's a feel-good movie. If you're open to that kind of experience, The Banshees of Inisherin is impeccably made, beautifully acted. The music is amazing. It's funny. It's dark. It's gross. I recommend it. It's a beautiful film.
It's definitely on the list. I believe it is now streaming on either HBO Max or Hulu, one of those. My wife asked if I was interested, and I said yes, and she huffed frustratedly because she wanted to watch it right away, and I couldn't watch it right away. So she's like, fine, I'll put it on the list.
I predict Michelle will like it a lot.
Yeah, well, we're both big fans of In Bruges.
Yeah.
We went to Bruges, one of our international trips, because of In Bruges. We wanted to wander around in the fairy tale effing town, as Colin Farrell puts it.
Dan, what side quests did you enjoy?
My favorite side quest was a book called Boots and Saddles by Elizabeth Custer. This is the widow of General
Wow.
George Armstrong Custer. This book was written in 1885, and I think the copy that I was reading was from 1885.
Yellowed pages.
I got it. Yes, very much so. Brown pages, actually. It was in very good condition. I got it from the library. But there was an inscription on the inside that had someone's signature and the date, 1887.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean,
wow.
That was like a cool part of it, was
At
to be sitting there holding this book that's 150 years old at a library.
Wow.
But it was in great shape. It was in great condition. But anyway, okay, so what is this book? This book is a memoir about her life as an army wife on the frontier.
Wow.
After their wedding, the new Mrs. Custer begged not to be left behind as George and the 7th Cavalry headed west and north into the Dakota Territory, and so he brought her along, as did other officers' wives. This was not an unprecedented thing. A lot of her time was spent at Fort Lincoln. She talks about the home life there and the fort life. What I remember from my history textbooks in school was the historians saying that Custer was arrogant and got himself and the entire 7th Cavalry killed by the Sioux at the Battle of Little Bighorn. That was the characterization of George Custer that I learned growing up. This book really humanized him. Elizabeth Custer talks about him being a warm, loving husband, a playful brother. 2 of his younger brothers were in the regiment. Very playful with them. He respected and loved the soldiers in his regiment. Custer loved the life. He was a cavalryman through and through. It was just a really enjoyable experience and so surprising. I didn't go to the library to get this book. I've talked a couple episodes ago about Mary Austin. I was looking for her books and I saw this other one and it just piqued my interest. So I pulled it off the shelf, took it home and read it. And it was wonderful. Really enjoyed it. And Elizabeth Custer, she was witty. Her writing is elegant. I laughed multiple times out loud.
How's the language? Does it read really archaic? Does it read like a...
Not at all.
No,
Not at all. No, there are some words that I had to look up because they've just fallen out of use. But no, for the most part, it was just beautiful writing. And
I'm always impressed by the breadth of reading that you do. And Joseph Wilbur, one of our good friend patrons, sent to our new Discord server, which I'll pimp later. He sent his reading challenge that he was going on.
Yeah, Cassia put one in the Discord as well.
So much of it was outside my normal reading habits that I felt intimidated and offended by it. So I think I'm going to do it because I was like, I have to read 2 biographies. Like, oh, those are so hard. I don't have time. And okay, maybe I should read some biographies. So
amazing. I
may take it. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's exciting that you found a book that old and read it. If Scott owned that book, he never would have let me touch it because I would have. When I read books, I consume them, and other people don't. Anyway, actually, that's not true. I've gotten better. I just finished the new Bosch, and it's in good shape. I'm going to lend it to people. It's good.
Well, that was my side quest. I think sounds like we both had really good side quests.
Yeah, it was a good month.
I'm pleased. All right. Well, shall we jump into Act 2 then?
Let's do it. Act 2 of the hero's journey begins with tests, allies, and enemies, the road of trials. Now in the special world, our hero makes allies, meets enemies, and must pass a series of tests to prove their worthiness. Allies, absolutely 0.
Correct.
Not a single ally. He is alone on the field of battle. Shapeshifters, everybody else in this film is a shapeshifter. Nathan is a shapeshifter. Ava, the AI he meets and is supposed to test, is a shapeshifter. Kyoko is a shapeshifter. Everyone in this film maybe with the exception of the helicopter pilot, is a shapeshifter, although he essentially switches allegiances without knowing it at the end of the film, but let's just leave him out of it for now. The structure of Act 2 of this film, I'm going to try not to get too meta, but this film is so brilliant. Everything is thought of, everything is intentional. Alex Garland is inspiring and infuriating to me because I feel like if I were to sit down with him, it'd be like having a conversation with Albert Einstein, where like everything he say would make sense, but only because he deigned to explain it to my small human mind. So the structure of this act is a sequence of interviews with Ava, the AI, which are all closely observed by Nathan on closed circuit TV. And then each of the interviews is followed by a debriefing session between Caleb and Nathan. And almost all of the tests, until we get to the very end of the sequence, are failures for Caleb because he's being manipulated the whole time. This whole movie, from his point of view, what he thinks he's doing, he's failing. From Nathan's point of view, he's doing exactly what he should be doing the entire movie until the very end of the third act. So the first test, there are these titles, these very Kubrickian titles throughout the film, Ava Session 1. And then it begins with the interview between Caleb and Ava. And it's almost like when Lieutenant Starling goes to see Hannibal Lecter for the first time. They are separated by a thick sheet of plexiglass. And actually, they're both in a fishbowl because Caleb steps into this tiny plexiglass vestibule. And then he can see into Ava, this beautiful humanoid AI robot, and her entire living space is not her whole living space, but this whole room that she lives in is in his view. So they're looking at each other through this plexiglass. So Caleb steps into this vestibule, and the first thing he sees is this crack in the plexiglass. It looks like something hard has struck the plexiglass. And so his first view into this room is distorted by this shattering. And it's like, you're left to wonder, what is that? Is that a warning? Is that foreshadowing? What happened to cause that?
Uh-huh.
And it's left unanswered until much, much later in the film. But it's one of many devices that Garland uses to ratchet up the tension and to twist our expectations of what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So he steps into this vestibule and sees Ava. She's a beautiful humanoid robot. She's got a human face, and parts of her body look human, her hands, but then the other part of her body is like this carbon fiber suit, and then her midriff has like this glowing blue energy source. So it's clear she's a robot. So they start with this awkward icebreakers, and he's trying to get to know her, and she's at the beginning presents very much like you would expect an AI to, very intellectual and analytical.
So we need to break the ice. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yes.
What do I mean?
Overcome initial social awkwardness.
So let's have a conversation.
And then at the end of this very short interview, she says, will you come back tomorrow? And that's the first little hook in Caleb, because now he feels wanted. After that, he has a debrief. So in my opinion, that first interview is a failure. And all of them are failures because he doesn't really succeed in learning much about the AI, and she succeeds in hooking him. Are you coming back tomorrow? It's a seduction from the beginning for her. So, and then he has this debrief with Nathan after the first session.
It's just in the Turing test. The machine should be hidden from the examiner.
No, we're way past that. If I hid Ava from you so you just heard her voice, she would pass for human. The real test is to show you that she's a robot and then see if you still feel she has consciousness.
And then Caleb is getting ready for bed, and we see these two long scars on his back. Now, we find out later that they're probably because of this car accident he was in that killed his parents. But in that shot, it looks like the scars from severed angels' wings. And I thought, what a beautiful visual to sort of his loss of innocence as he goes through this story.
Yeah.
So Caleb can't sleep. He wakes up at 2:26 a.m. and he turns on the TV only to discover it's Ava TV 24/7. And he just watches her. He is hypnotized by her. And this is another failed test because he's already being seduced. She's not even in the room with him. His analytical mind is being short-circuited as Nathan planned and expected. The power fails and everything turns red. And then the power goes back on, and he discovers when the power goes out that he's locked in. Very important plot point. When the power goes out, you're locked in. So then the power comes back up, and he wanders out And he walks down the hallway and he's examining this line of masks that are attached to the wall. And some of them look very like tribal artifacts. And then as you get to the end, it's, if not Ava's face, it's like the precursor to Ava's face. It's like the kind of like the mask that she wears as an AI. So this is symbolic that he needs to understand that everything he sees is deception. Nothing is what it appears to be. Here's a blatant display of everything is behind a mask. So he's walking around the compound in the dark, and he enters this room with a Jackson Pollock painting on the wall, and there's a phone, and he goes to pick up the phone, and
You don't have access to use the phone.
he's surprised by Nathan, who's sitting behind him in the dark, drunk. And he has a very different affect now. He is very sarcastic and caustic and doesn't appear to like Caleb the way he did in the first scene. He's just drunk and grumpy.
Who are you gonna call?
I don't know. No one really.
Ghostbusters.
What?
Who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters? It's a movie, man. You don't know that movie?
And this reminded me of The Shining, this conversation about the phone, right? They're snowed in. Jack destroys the radio. In this, the power keeps going out, and he doesn't have access to the phone. In any horror movie or tension movie.
Thriller.
Yeah, thank you. You have to isolate the characters, and then you have to explain away any ability to communicate with the outside world.
Yeah.
All right, I got to speed up because I have 70,000 more points to get to.
This is a dense film.
It is, and everything is so important. And I need to reset myself. This is about the hero's journey. It's not about Jeff loving every Alex Garland shot. Okay, that is my new commitment. So session 2 is coming. Nathan sets this up the morning before the session, and it's a mentor moment, but it's manipulation. He says, don't forget, you got to lay off the textbook approach. The question now, today, is how does she feel about you? He's disarming Caleb's intellect to make him more open and vulnerable to Ava's manipulations. That's the real test that he's putting through. That's the villain's hero's journey, right? So, Ava session 2. And the failure of this test is that Ava controls the whole interview. From the beginning, she starts by showing him a drawing and teasing out his reaction. It's an abstract drawing. And he says, well, I'd like to see you draw something that you choose. And she says, well, why is it my choice? And he says, because I'm interested to see what you choose. And then she turns the interview around. She starts asking him about himself. And then she turns his own line against him. He says, well, what do you want to know about me? And she replies, I'm interested to see what you choose. So she's already outwitted him, and now she's turning it against him. She starts to play a little bit of the damsel in distress and activates Caleb's inner good guy, making him feel needed and important, and that he's the kind of guy who can rescue damsels in distress. She says, do you want to be my friend? Will it be possible? And then she starts interrogating him about his personal life, including his relationships. Are you married? Your status is single. So she is planting, are you romantically available? She is just setting up the dominoes on this poor guy who's lonely, is an orphan. We learn.
It's interesting. If I could just interject real quick, I found it interesting the way she asks. She says, is your status single? She doesn't say, are you single?
Right.
The wording of that question is very much like she's reciting a social media status data point.
Yeah. So we learn he's an orphan who likes Depeche Mode, even though the only music we ever hear him listening to is OMD. So whatever. Maybe Depeche Mode didn't want to lend their movie to a Psycho Sex Robot movie. We don't know.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
And then she says, do you like Nathan? Is he your friend? And you can see Caleb, like, how do I say no? He's kind of a dick. And then the power goes out. And everything goes red again. And Ava's whole affect changes.
Right.
And you're like, what is about to happen? And she whispers, you're wrong. Nathan isn't your friend. You shouldn't trust him. You shouldn't trust anything he says. Power goes on again. So now we're like, wait, what? All of a sudden, everything is wrong. Because now that weird tension that we felt in every scene between Caleb and Nathan is times 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, failed test. Not only does he not learn anything about Ava's AI, but he's been probed, and now he's being manipulated. He's off balance more than he was before. So, we have debrief 2 at dinner.
Poor Caleb.
Nathan sets up the fact in this scene that when the power goes out, he loses video and audio. And then he asks, so what's the report? what did you learn? And Caleb mentions Ava turning his own phrase around on him, that it demonstrates that she's aware of his mind. Oh, she's aware of her own mind and of his. And Nathan says, she's aware of you all right. So now he's planting that seed of like, oh yeah, she likes you.
Yes.
And then Nathan specifically asks what happened when the power went out. And he's, casual about it, but with this air of, I know what happened when the power went out. Now, the question is, do you know that I know? And what do you think I know? And Caleb, who has zero poker face, is like, nothing. And Nathan goes, oh, okay. Plays like he believes it, right?
Like, really? She didn't mention it at all? Well, all right.
Huh, yeah. Also, during this
scene.
scene,
very much of a, huh.
Yeah, this whole movie is full of that kind of tension where we don't know what Nathan knows, but we think we probably do. And it's so great. And also in this scene, we establish Nathan and Kyoko's relationship. Kyoko's this tall Asian domestic person, we think. It's established that she doesn't speak English, and it's so that Nathan can have conversations about top secret things without worrying that she's being spied on. Yeah. And in this scene, she spills a glass of wine, and Nathan erupts at her and yells at her. So you immediately get this guy's bad to waiters.
I know that there's a scene later with Kyoko, but isn't it clear that she is another AI? Or she's at least an android of some kind. She's some kind of automaton.
The first time I saw this movie, I wasn't even paying attention to her. Like, it was a surprise to me that she turned out to be. It was. I totally got sucked in. I can totally see how you wouldn't, because she's very unnatural. She's not presented as a natural, human-like person. She's very otherworldly. So I can totally see how people saw that coming. I didn't, and I loved the payoff.
Huh, okay.
Okay, so then Nathan shows Caleb the lab, and I love the way Alex Garland assembles this, because he says, I'm literally giving you every fact you need to know to understand what's really happening here, and I keep testing you because I have to make sure that you're as pure and as uncorrupt as I need you to be to get this done. So he shows Caleb the lab where Ava was built. He explains that he collected facial and voice data from every cell phone on the planet and ran it through Blue Book. He's telling Caleb everything. Yep. He's saying, I have total surveillance. I manipulate everything. But Caleb is too fascinated by all the technology to understand what he's being told. Failure. Nathan then explains, here's the brain. It's not transistors, it's made of gel, it's flexible, and he explains that all of his competitors failed because they thought that search engine data was what people were thinking. And he said it's not about what they're thinking, it's about how they're thinking. Nathan is such a great villain. He's like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Like, he is the great tech villain of our time. Now we have Ava Session 3. She presents him with another picture that she's drawn. It's a picture of the atrium, the only thing she can see that's even close to outside. Then she tells him she's never been outside the room she's in. She starts planting the idea of escape in his head. He asks her where would she go, and she says a traffic intersection.
A traffic intersection would provide a concentrated but shifting view of human life.
People watching.
Yes. We could go together.
It's a date.
Man, the guy is just sliding down the slide. And then, in a classic seduction technique, she says, well, I want to show you something else, but you'll probably think it's stupid. No, I won't think it's stupid. And then she goes in the back room and she selects a dress and she puts on a wig and she pulls on stockings. She is dressing up as a human for him.
This is what I'd wear on our date.
Right? First a traffic intersection, then maybe a show.
I'd like us to go on a date.
Yep. It'd be fun.
Are you attracted to me?
What?
I mean, she goes from 0 to 60 in this, and he is just flustered like a freshman in high school. She's blatantly seducing him, and now she starts talking about his micro expressions and how he's sending signals that he's attracted, and do you think about me when we're not together? I mean, she is just under his skin.
Caleb.exe has stopped working.
Oh my God. Yes, he is a Twitter at this point.
He's stammering and just...
A great performance by Domhnall Gleeson. And let it be said that Alicia Vikander is extraordinary in this role. Her brilliance is invisible because it's so good. She's so machine-like and innocent, only she's not.
Sometimes at night, I'm wondering if you're watching me on the cameras. And I hope you are. Now your micro-expressions are telegraphing discomfort.
I am not sure you'd call them micro.
And then the next thing we see is she starts undressing in her back room. She's pulling her stockings off and pulls off her dress and lets it pool on the floor. And Caleb's watching, and he is just...
It's notable that she's not doing this in a standard robotic way.
Right.
The way she lifts her leg up onto the lounge and rolls the stockings down and then turns her back to the three quarters to the camera and lifts the dress up off of her. She's circuitry underneath. It's not a human female body under there, but there's a sensuality to her actions that have Caleb absolutely captivated.
Yeah. And
and us too, probably.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think part of the fun of this movie is falling in love with her, watching Caleb fall in love with her, knowing it's bad, but being able to relate to Caleb, because here's this incredible thing that's the culmination of everything he loves intellectually and everything he wants from a human woman. It's just it's a great fantasy for him. And he's getting sucked into it.
Right.
So debrief 3. We think, okay, Caleb's not entirely innocent here because the first thing he does is ask Nathan, why did you give her sexuality? And Nathan makes a really good argument that any conscious being would have a need for interaction. And then he plants, in a very crude but funny way, the specifics of how Ava is capable of having sex and enjoying it. So now it's like, you can't, that's in Caleb's head now. You can't take that. This guy's a master manipulator.
Yeah, you cannot unring that bell.
Not only maybe does she like you, but you could totally have sex with her and it'd be great. Oh. So then Caleb is asking him, did you program her to like me? Did you program her to flirt with me? And Nathan, again, great gaslighter. He's like, you know what? I'm so annoyed with you. This isn't your intellect talking. This is your insecurity. Hold on, Nate. You literally have been telling him the whole time not to be intellectual, but to be emotional. And now he's focusing on the emotional interaction. And you're like, be analytical. What are you doing? You're so insecure. And then they had this scene with the Pollock painting. So he takes him down to the Pollock painting. And he talks about how Pollock was an automatic painter. If he stopped to think about what he was painting, he never would have put a mark on the page. I watched the scene 4 times in a row. I was trying to understand it. Because, of course, I'm taking it personally as a creative person going, what does that mean? What are you trying to say? What, like, the challenge? The quote is...
So you got offended?
I watched it. I didn't understand it. I thought, well, if there's a part of this movie I should understand, it's talking about art. So my takeaway, I think, was that you don't have to know why you're doing something to do it. In fact, if you insist on knowing, it might stop you from doing it. And he says the challenge is not to act automatically. It's to find an action that is not automatic, from painting to breathing to effing to falling in love. So I think what he's doing here is another thing saying the greatest artist in the world knew that when the chips are down, it's not about what you think, it's about what you do, like falling in love and screwing. Go to that. Go toward that.
For the record, Ava's not pretending to like you. You're the first man she's met that isn't me. And I'm like her dad, right? So can you blame her for getting a crush on you?
So he really logically says, yeah, she's a crush on you. It's totally justified and true. And so now Caleb's going, okay, wow, she does. She really likes me. Now I have what I think is the last sequence before approach, Ava session 4. This is great because he sits down and tells Ava about this AI thought experiment called Mary in the black and white room. The idea is there's a scientist named Mary who grew up living in a black and white room. She's never experienced color, but she's studied color. She knows the wavelengths. She knows the science. She knows everything about color intellectually. That's the AI. And then when the door opens and Mary leaves the room and experiences color for the first time, she knows how it feels to see red and green and blue. That's the human. And he tells Ava, I'm here to test whether you have a consciousness. He thinks he's revealing something to her. And she says, I feel sad. So even she is saying, don't be intellectual. Like she's messing with him. Then there's a power cut. And he asks Ava if Nathan is lying about the power cuts. Is he causing them so that he can see how they act when they're unobserved? And she says, no, I'm the one causing them so we can see how we behave when we're unobserved. And it's like, oh man, this poor kid, he can't. The first time I watched this, I've watched this movie 10 times. Like Caleb, I wanted her to be a good guy so bad. I wanted her to be a benign AI who just wanted human connection. And the other part of me knew, nope, she's going to get out of there and murder everyone and take over the world. And that tension is what's so brilliant about this movie. Okay, debrief number 4, after Ava session number 4. Caleb now confronts Nathan. He says, I wasn't randomly chosen by a lottery. I was selected. Nathan, quote, admits, unquote, I did choose you. I found the most talented coder at my company. You weren't lucky you were chosen. You know, you should be proud. You should be happy. So more manipulation. And it's the first admission he's made to Caleb that he's lying. And so what Caleb does from this point on is different than how he behaved before. I don't think he definitely doesn't see everything as it is, but this is the first time he's gotten an admission from Nathan that Nathan lied and brought him here under false circumstances. Now, the reason Nathan gives, the alternate reason, is also a lie. But this is sort of a branching in Caleb's view of what's happening here. And I draw the line there before approach. That's almost his first past test in a way, that he gets some other deeper lie instead of the same lie he's been getting.
It's more true than not, at least, that yes, he was selected, but the reason for the selection, that part is still a lie.
Well, and it's funny because later in the movie, after Caleb finds out the real reason he's there, again, Nathan says, you shouldn't feel bad. This is, you're still contributing to this really important moment. You were a part of it. And if you pull back to Nathan's point of view, everything is something to be used. Everything is a tool. Every person is a tool. Humanity is sort of worthless to him, which is why he's creating a machine with humanity, because why not? So in that case, he's being pretty honest here, because the thought that Caleb might be offended or feel disrespected that he was chosen for a different reason, like, why? It's just, you're a tool. Like, why would I worry about hurting the feelings of a tool, So that's the cunning thing, or the curious thing about Nathan's sociopathy is that he's kind of an equal opportunity dehumanizer. You know what I mean?
Wow.
He treats human people with the same disrespect as he treats machine consciousnesses. And why wouldn't he? They're all tools for his games.
He sees his intellect as superior to everybody else's. He says this to Caleb.
Yeah.
He said, you think I don't know what it's like to be smarter than everybody else in the room?
Yeah. More manipulation.
Yeah.
I'm like you.
Yeah.
I'm so smart. You're smart like me.
Yeah.
All right. So that's where I ended tests.
That brings us to approach to the inmost cave. The hero reaches the edge of a dangerous place where the object of their quest is hidden. We have diverged.
I figured.
Vogler, in The Writer's Journey, identifies courtship as an element of the approach to the inmost cave. And when Ava really ratchets up the flirting in session 3, puts on the dress, says, let's go on a date. I would like to go on a date. Are you? All that. I saw that as approach to the inmost cave because it's what begins to launch Caleb into his initiating White Knight protocol because he wants to save her. He wants to find a way to get her out of there.
Ooh, I like that.
So that they can be together in the way that Nathan suggests.
I like that.
So I've got session 3 as approach to the inmost cave.
Our ordeals are going to be different, aren't they, Dan?
Yes, I believe they are going to be drastically different.
All right.
What's your approach?
Oh, boy.
Now that we have diverged.
it's basically Ava session 5 and then a few things leading up to that set up session 5. Nathan is boxing and then turns and starts making out with Kyoto. And I saw this as misdirection because, oh man, he's having an affair with his domestic servant. I didn't go, oh, this is robot. The first time I saw it, I went right past me. We cut between that and Caleb is showering. He's having fantasies of Ava in the outdoors with him. And now it's crossing over from fantasy to plan, right? He's starting to visualize this as happening. Caleb is drying off and he glances at the monitor in his room, which is now Ava TV 24/7. He's just leaving it on, right? He witnesses Nathan with Ava looking at her latest drawing and then tearing it up. Nathan is moving his plan to the next level, furthering establishing Ava's need to be rescued from his cruelty.
Yeah.
So in the same way that her seduction is getting near to the inmost cave, this is Nathan really saying, okay, I've got the stage set, I've got him hooked. Now I'm going to demonstrate how cruel I am, and that will cement his need to rescue Ava, and then my test will be complete.
Important to note that what Caleb is watching has no audio, so
Right.
he can't hear what, if any, exchange the two of them are having in that room.
Yeah.
And we don't know what Nathan's motivation is for this scene. We don't know that Nathan thinks that Caleb is watching Ava TV 24/7 and is seeing this happening. All we see is a candid moment of Nathan being mean to Ava, but not being aware that he's being observed doing it.
Right.
That's important.
Yeah, you're right.
To not really divulge that this is all part of Nathan's master plan, because that's a big twist at the end of the movie.
For sure. Well, I've been doing that all along in my analysis, though, because I'm looking at it from that other angle.
Oh, I know.
But you're absolutely right.
And I guess if anybody's listening to this, they've seen the movie and they know already what happens. But I don't know. I'm just afraid that there just happens to be somebody who doesn't want to watch the movie or doesn't have the time and is just going to listen to this, that might be a confusing.
Got it. So Caleb sees this and goes looking for Nathan. He's like, that's it. I'm going to confront Nathan about his behavior and find out what's going on. And so he encounters Kyoko, and she's staring at the Pollock painting. And Kyoko, her performance is so interesting when you look back on when you find out what actually is going on with her, which is, well, we'll talk about Kyoko later. But she's staring at the Pollock painting, and I feel like she looks, which is, what am I looking at? What does this mean? What is, like, my brain is melting. And he asks, Caleb takes her shoulders and says, where is Nathan? And she starts undressing. She starts unbuttoning her blouse. And he's like, no, don't do that. Stop, don't. You don't need to do that. And then Nathan comes in. So now Caleb's been caught. We don't know, he doesn't know when Nathan came in. So Caleb, I'm sure, thinks that Nathan just walked in on him trying to undress his domestic servant. And then one of my favorite sequences in the movie that makes this movie so off balance is Nathan says, I told you, you're wasting your time talking to her. She doesn't speak any English, but you wouldn't be wasting your time if you danced with her. And he flips the lights, and now all of a sudden the room is a disco, and Nathan and Kyoko go into this 70s disco dance.
Yeah. Choreographed.
And Caleb is like, and the audience is like, what is happening? What is happening in this movie? And I forgot. Caleb says, you tore up her drawing. And he says, yeah, I'm going to tear up the dance floor, dude. Okay.
Totally dismissive of Caleb's concern right here. He's like, whatever. Yeah, you're so unimportant, I'm going to dance right in front of you because I don't care. Mm-hmm.
All of that is a setup to the session with Ava that is going to clinch what Caleb does.
Yeah.
I'm not expressing this very clearly, but this next scene is what makes it irreversible. So he sits down with Ava and she says, I'm going to test you. And they have this lie detector sequence where she's asking him his favorite color and all this stuff. And then she says, are you a good person? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And then she says, what's going to happen to me if I don't function properly? Am I going to be switched off? And then she shows him the ripped up drawing, and it's a drawing of him. And then the power goes out, and she says, I want to be with you. Do you want to be with me? And all this sharpening and honing and pushing and manipulation comes to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then one final debrief. And he says, why did you make Ava? And Nathan gives his take on it. Basically, AI was inevitable. It wasn't a matter of if, it's when. And I think the next model will be the breakthrough. And that's what Caleb was here for. What happens to Ava? And he basically says, well, her memory will be erased, essentially killing her. This is the final straw. Now he knows rescue is what I have to do. To me, that's the approach. That's what happens next. Has to happen because of that.
Do you think I might be switched off because I don't function as well as I'm supposed to?
Ava, I don't know the answer to your question. It's not up to me.
Why is it up to anyone? Do you have people who test you and might switch you off?
No, I don't.
Then why do I?
Ordeal. The hero faces the ultimate test, often risking death to overcome his worst fear, sometimes actually appearing to die. Okay, Dan, this is late in the movie. We are 1 hour and 10 minutes into an hour and 48 minutes film. So if we're following screenplay structure, Act 1 should be 27 minutes, Act 2 should be 54, Act 3 should be 27. Well, we're already way off that because Act 1 is 12 minutes. It's half the length it should be.
Sure.
Halfway through the movie should be 54 minutes.
Right.
When this sequence that I'm about to claim is the ordeal starts, we are 68 minutes into the movie. We are 14 minutes late. I'm going to argue that 68 minutes into a 148 film is pretty much right dead on for a delayed crisis, if you look at that graph. So here's my argument. Caleb gets Nathan drunk and steals his key card. This is about as clear as it gets stealing the treasure from the sleeping dragon. I mean, this is sneaking into the dragon's lair, stealing the treasure. Elixir theft is what Campbell calls it. He enters Nathan's office and he starts doing some coding on his computer. We think he's just breaking into the video footage. We find out later that there's more going on, but he sees a video of Nathan building and testing earlier versions of Ava. So it's like time-lapse footage.
Right.
And he witnesses one of them, we find out in the credits her name is Jade, screaming at Nathan, "Why won't you let me out?" And she's the one who makes the crack in the plexiglass. And then we see her trying to escape, and she's beating her fists against the door until her arms literally disintegrate. It's a horrifying thing to watch, this super sped up film of this, robot woman trying to break through.
Because she's got complete human skin. She looks like a human.
Right.
There's nothing that betrays that she's an AI except the fact that you've just watched 68 minutes of this movie, so you know.
Right. Right.
And in the upper left-hand corner of all of these footage, you see the AI's name and a version number. So she's like Jade 2.4 or something like that.
Oh,
so that's in the upper left corner of every screen of all these different people. There's Lily, there's Jade, there's Jasmine, they're all named after rocks or flowers.
Except Ava. Okay. So finally, Caleb goes into Nathan's room, his bedroom, the inmost cave. And Kyoko is lying there naked. Now, so we've seen before established this like ring of mirrored cabinets in Nathan's bedroom. And he opens them one by one and sees all the previous models of Ava, of all the previous female AI standing in these closets. And it's just like, oh man, this is sick. And then he turns around and Kyoko's standing there and she starts peeling away her skin.
Right.
Revealing that she's a robot too. And I just thought and watching this for the 10th time, one of the things I noticed is that she peels up a piece of skin right by her ribs, which becomes important in a minute. So like I said, the first time I saw it, there was a twist and I loved it. I hadn't seen it coming and it was awesome. Cut to Nathan is now awake and he's stumbling back toward his room. And we're like, oh no, is Caleb going to get caught? Like, oh my God, this is tense. I hate moments like this in movies. But Caleb is one step ahead, and as Nathan stumbles to his bedroom door, Caleb appears and pretends to find his key card on the floor and walks away. So he's not been caught, or so we think. To me, that's ordeal. Mm-hmm. The death he's facing is he's risking being found out. He's risking not being able to rescue Ava. That moment is the moment that cements his resolve that Nathan is a bad guy, that he's done something wrong, and that Ava is in danger of being deleted like all of these other dead bodies or dumbed down into a sex robot like Kyoko.
Yeah.
So that's what I had as ordeal.
Yeah, very good. I like that. I have a couple of items that I had picked out that were much earlier in the film that I think fulfill in some way elements of the ordeal. One aspect that Campbell calls out as being an element of ordeal is atonement with the Father. And I saw Caleb confronting Nathan about his lies as at least a beginning step to atoning with the Father, the person, the character with the greatest power over him.
I can see that.
Oh, and this is when Nathan says, yes, the lottery's a smokescreen. I specifically chose the most talented coder. And then he says something to him that I think could border along the lines of apotheosis when Nathan says,
You got the light on you, man. Not lucky. Chosen.
the light on you, as in the divine light. Your superior intellect was granted to you by God. You are not lucky. You are chosen. There's a reason they're standing outside atop a glacier when Nathan tells him this information.
Yeah,
at the top of the world, almost.
Yeah, I like it.
That is a bit of ordeal that falls within the proper running time of the ordeal, but what you have laid out is a much stronger in terms of the journey itself.
Well, we certainly established the elements are stirred up and stirred around. So I think those are two really great elements that you pulled out. That's awesome.
The one more is you had mentioned the scene of Caleb showering. This is immediately following this scene, and this is where he's imagining this black and white scene of him and Ava outside. And the shower is a baptism. He is washing off
the baptism,
the previous exterior Caleb, and now he is this new Caleb with this new understanding. Granted, it's a lie still, but he thinks now he's been told the truth. Dang. So now he goes on with this new perception of his role in the experiment.
I love it.
Reward, the ultimate boon. Having faced their worst fear, the hero seizes the object of their quest. So again, mixing up of elements, and I'm behind you still. Caleb imagining this black and white scene, he and Ava are in the forest together, they approach, they embrace, and they kiss. Vogler talks about love scenes being a part of the reward, and I think that this dream of Caleb's fantasy is a representation of a love scene. It's as close as he's going to get. The revelation that Caleb was specifically chosen is a reward. Even though it's a misdirection, it's a lie. He doesn't know that yet. He thinks you were chosen, not lucky. That is a reward. Again, and I would repeat you've got the light on you. Those to me were rewards because they embolden Caleb in the actions to come.
I saw the reward here as seeing through deception, and it happens after my ordeal, which is seeing all the previous versions. So there's a sequence where Caleb is lying in bed and he's remembering seeing Kyoko's fembot face, those robot eyes staring at him, and so much so that he wonders if he's a robot. And he goes into the mirror and he pulls up his shirt to check his ribs. And I just thought, we've already established that in this scenario, Nathan is a god. And how did God create woman? He took a rib from man, and she pulls up her ribs to show that she's not a real woman. So he's checking that section that she peeled up. He's looking there. And then he's checking his eyes and his mouth, and then he takes his razor and cuts his. So he's seeing through deception, and he's also establishing here that he still is human. He's seeing the difference between real and artificial, and that sequence demonstrates that seeing through deception. So that's what I had as reward.
I disagree with that being seeing through deception. He has not been. The deception would have been if he were actually AI and he rips his skin off and discovers that he really is AI. That would be the seeing through the deception. He has been so mind-effed that he's standing in front of the mirror, slitting his wrists open to make himself bleed, and then he peels the wound apart to make sure that he's human. That is some road back stuff for me. He has been so manipulated that he's not even sure he's human.
Right, but he makes sure that's true in this sequence.
But the fact that he has to go through those steps to make sure that he's human.
Well, you have to go through the ordeal to see through the deception.
The fact that he's questioning his own humanity.
Right.
he's been so screwed with that he's questioning his own humanity. That is not a reward. I don't know how to
Well, I agree that the
enunciate it any better.
Cutting open his wrists maybe isn't the reward, but it's part of seeing through deception. It's part of clarifying what's really going on here. And that, to me, seeing through deception is the reward here. There's no monetary reward. There's no tool reward. The reward here is realizing what's really going on. And even now, he doesn't actually realize what's going on, but he thinks he does.
I disagree. We'll just leave it at that. I don't think I'm going to convince you otherwise.
Well, I guess I could argue that
you're not going to convince me otherwise.
I could argue that a false compliment from someone who's manipulating you is no reward either. And
True.
He wasn't chosen for his coding ability. That was a lie. He was chosen because he was manipulatable. So
he doesn't know that yet. But
yeah, but I don't.
Seeing this from the hero's perspective.
But I don't think he believes. I don't think those compliments actually give him confidence to do what he does. I think his confidence in doing what he does comes from his desire to rescue her. So I guess we don't agree with each other's rewards then.
Which is okay. It's fine.
Get on the Discord server. # Team Dan. Maybe we're both deceived. I think one thing we can agree on is that it's time for a drink.
Is it time for a drink, or have you just been manipulated to thinking that it's time for a drink?
Dan, welcome to the Vogler Lounge. I see it's been redecorated a little bit. Strangely, all the walls are 2-inch plexiglass, which is interesting. And they've replaced the bartenders with AI since all of our jobs are slowly being given to machines.
Man, that got too real. Okay, well, in Act 2, after I think Ava Session 2, Caleb and Nathan are sitting at dinner. This is when Kyoko spills a glass of wine on Caleb.
Right.
So I've got a red wine. The red wine I went with is a Spanish Grenache from Bodegas Carre. The reason I picked it, the label art brought to mind the masks that hang on the wall outside of Caleb's room.
Yeah, I can see that.
I don't know if I need to do this anymore since we're not recording on video anymore.
Well, I like to see it.
For your benefit, you can see how dark it is. Grenache, this one at least, is very dark. Very oaky on the nose.
I'm not sure I know what that means. It means that you can taste the barrel?
It smells like wood.
Okay.
But if you're being highfalutin and sniffing wine, you would say oaky.
I consider myself highfalutin.
That smells like a 2x4.
Wouldn't that be a pine? Mostly those are pine, aren't they?
See, Jeff? That's why you say oaky, so that you're specifying the type of wood that it smells like. So if you say, this smells woody, you know, the next question would be, what kind of wood? You see the...
Yeah.
What are you doing over there? Are you good?
I just got really inspired to take a photo of my beverage in this particular environment.
I'm tasting it, and I'm trying to identify what I'm tasting.
Pine.
Yeah. Wonder if the bottle can prime me a little bit. Okay, yeah, dark cherry. Not sure I get mocha, but now that my brain has been primed, now that the computer algorithm is accessing mocha sensations in my brain.
The label is manipulating you.
That's correct. Now maybe I'll get it. Let's see. Nope. Didn't work on me.
You can see right through its deception.
Yep.
That's because you cut your arm open, so now you can tell that that's wine and not blood.
No, because if...
See, we can't let it go. We could take the argument right into the lounge.
This is very good. Fruity is what I got out of it. I just couldn't identify the fruit. But now that the vintner has instructed me to think of dark cherry, now I get that.
Oh, good.
I absolutely get that. And sometimes that's what happens when you are tasting and smelling things. You don't access the memory of that scent or that flavor. But if someone identifies it for you...
I mean, if that improves your experience of drinking the wine, I say that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I have never been more dubious about my choice of beverage. I was in La Jolla for the weekend with my family, and I went to Dick's Liquor in La Jolla, Dan, you must make a pilgrimage to this store.
Really?
Their whiskey selection was insane. I saw brands I'd never heard of and variants of brands that I'd never heard of or seen.
Really?
It was really cool to go. And I went through the beer section like I always do, looking for robot beer or artificial intelligence or whatever,
Yep.
Found nothing.
I did the same thing.
But I kept thinking, they drink beer, and I looked up the name of the beer they drink, and it's a made-up beer, although its Japanese name has all sorts of significance because Alex Garland is obsessed. And then...
Yeah. Do you want to share that significance or no?
You can go if you know it. I didn't write it down. It's called Keikaku beer, and Keikaku has some kind of relevance to the story.
Well, it means plan in Japanese.
There you go.
Plan or scheme. And that's all what this movie is all about. Everybody's planning and scheming.
And then he drinks a lot of vodka. So I was trying to find... We see the bottle at one point. It's a bottle of Russian vodka. You can see the sickle and hammer symbol, but I couldn't determine the brand. But as
probably fake as well.
Probably. They were probably smoking red apple cigarettes on the set. But what I did find as I was walking through the store was a bottle of vodka called Double Cross.
Oh, that's good.
And I thought,
that is
come
significant.
on. It's a beautiful rectangular bottle.
It is. It's very obelisk-like.
I found a cocktail recipe called Robot.
Mm-hmm. And
I read the recipe and I said, that absolutely can't be right. So I went to another website and they had exactly the same recipe and another. And so I got wondering, do cocktail...
How many times did you say, no, that can't be right either? I'm going to keep looking until I find one that matches my expectations.
I went to 3 different websites and what I got was, I think cocktail recipes must just get syndicated by a bot or something, where which makes it more perfect. But here's what the recipe calls for. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
1/2 pint Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey.
Pint?
Mm-hmm. 1/8 pint Absolute vodka. 2 drops grenadine syrup.
Serves 8.
1/2 pint. Nope. And then I found another website that said, this is a rather strong beverage. And it listed the same, half a pint of whiskey. That's 8 ounces of whiskey. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's,
So I did not.
If you're having a Nathan kind of night, that's probably how you're going to have at least that much.
And if you're inorganic, it might not affect you. So I modified the recipe. I don't know how it's going to be. So I have 1.5 ounces of whiskey, 1/2 ounce of vodka, and I went ahead and did the 2 drops of grenadine.
Oh, wait. Okay.
So it looks like a glass of whiskey. There's a little red tinge, maybe, from the grenadine.
Certainly.
And I put a cube in there. I don't smell the grenadine, which is good.
Just 2 drops. You might not.
So I got the whiskey smell, but I also smell that sort of flat vodka smell. Let me smell the vodka right out of the bottle and see what that's like.
Did you taste the vodka by itself?
I did not taste anything by myself.
What it smells and tastes like.
Okay, yeah, that's the smell. That's the vodka smell I'm getting for sure.
All right,
here we go.
Put your cap back on that thing.
I did.
You did? Okay.
It tastes like an old fashioned.
Really?
Yeah, the vodka the vodka adds burn to the otherwise pretty smooth whiskey, and then there's just a touch of sweetness from the grenadine. That's actually really good.
There's no bitters or anything in it?
I didn't know.
Because you put bitters in an old-fashioned.
Right. Well, maybe the...
But it simulates the flavor of an old-fashioned well enough. What whiskey? Did you use Jack Daniels, you said?
No,
I used... Not a pint and a half, but...
I used the Gold Bar that I bought.
Okay.
So it's a whiskey blend. It's not... I did not expect vodka and whiskey to mix well, but... It's really good.
For Christmas, my wife got me a make-your-own whiskey kit.
What?
My first question when I opened it was, is this legal? But reading the instructions, it says take an unflavored, clear spirit like vodka.
Okay.
That's your base.
Okay.
And then the kit has a bunch of little vials with wood chips in it. Dark chocolate wood chips, and there's new oak wood chips, so you're going to get a lot of color and flavor out of those. So you just take the bottle and you put whatever wood chips in it you want in whatever quantity, and then you fill the bottle with your spirit. Then you just age it for 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how much effect you want those wood chips to have. And that's what you do with a whiskey. You pour it into an oak barrel, And it's the same effect. That whiskey is going to absorb, or the spirit is going to absorb from the barrel,
I
the
can't wait to
color and
taste your
oaky
whiskey.
flavors, and from that oak, then you also get your vanilla and your cinnamons and like all that stuff. Is just it comes out of the wood. So I'm curious to see how this works. I have not started yet, but that might be my beverage in a future episode, just because I want to try it. It won't have anything to do with the. We'll have to do an episode about people who make booze next, so that can actually fit the theme.
Okay. Hey, listeners, if you know narrative films, not documentaries about people who make booze, hit us up. Well, I'm very surprised. I'm glad I didn't use an...
I'm kind of disappointed, honestly.
That'd be an expensive cocktail, man. Oh,
that would have been a fun way to do Act 3.
It would have been fun to see the look on your face as I held up and it said, use a highball glass. I'm like, what? You'd have to use a pint glass for that.
More than that.
It's a half pint and an eighth pint. You can fit it.
I think the recipe, clearly, the recipe is you're making a cocktail batch that is intended to serve multiple people.
Yeah.
You're making a party drink right there.
I guess.
Pour it into the punch bowl.
Well, next time I have a party, I'll do that. So the robot cocktail with double cross vodka.
Very cool. Your choice of vodka is on point.
All right. Well, as we keep drinking our themed beverages, we're going to slide in to Act 3. Act 3 begins with the road back. The hero is pursued by vengeful forces. Wow.
Vengeful
forces.
Already.
I'm going.
It's a good thing you didn't use a pint of bourbon.
Just like Nathan, my speech is being affected. Only I'm not quoting an obscure passage from the Bhagavad Gita.
It's Ghostbusters. It's a movie, man. Never seen that movie.
The hero is pursued by the vengeful force. Wow!
Jeff, get it together, man. Pull it together.
I'm just going to go with vengeful
I'm leaving
forces.
all this in, by the way. Because this is gold.
The hero is pursued by the vengeful forces they disturbed when they seized the object of their quest. Ava, Session 6. Ava turns on the guilt trip. So typical for a psycho sex robot.
Ooh.
Saying, I know, now I'm being,
Now I have to decide whether, do I cut that? Because that's an incredibly offensive statement that can be extrapolated to apply to other
I redeemed my pronouns and then
kinds of robots.
Went straight into, my prejudice against... He walks in and she says, where were
White
you?
Knight protocol has ceased working.
She says, where were you? I waited for you. Aren't you going to say something? And he says, I'm waiting. And she's like, oh, okay. So she triggers a power cut. And he says, you were right about Nathan. He's going to reprogram your AI, which is the same as killing you. Remember the help me sign I referenced earlier? The neon goes on. You have to help me. I am going to help you. I'm going to get Nathan drunk, take his key card, reprogram security so he's locked in and we can escape. You just need to trigger a power failure at 10 p.m. So his plan is in place. His magic flight.
Exactly.
But when he offers Nathan a drink...
Caleb, I'm sure you've noticed that I've been somewhat overdoing it recently. So when I woke up this morning, I said, that's it. Time to hit the old detox.
Come on, yeah. You're kidding. You're going to make me drink alone?
Hey, man, you want to get wasted, you go right ahead, knock yourself out. Literally. But I'm on brown rice and mineral water.
And the look on his face is like, oh, God,
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
You have to drink. That's how my plan starts to work.
Here comes the debrief from Session 6. Nathan says, oh, well, now it's your last day, so you got to tell me, did Ava pass or fail? And Caleb says she passed. And Nathan pretends to be surprised and excited, but the pretense is thin. He's like, oh, that's great. Like, of course she passed, you nincompoop, right? And then he says, oh, well, did we ever solve the chess problem? And we kind of skipped this, but at one point early on, they discussed the chess problem, which is how do you test a chess computer? Well, you play chess with it, but that doesn't tell you if the computer knows what chess is or that it knows it's playing.
Exactly. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier with telling a toddler to go get a bottle of water for you. Can you program an AI to do that? Because does the AI know that it's opening the fridge door, getting the bottle of water, and closing the fridge door because it's been programmed to take those exact actions? Or does it know that in order to access the bottle of water, the fridge door must be opened first? Conceptually, does it understand that? And that's the chess computer question.
Yeah, so Nathan says, did we solve the chess problem, whether the AI is expressing emotion or just simulating one? Does Ava actually like you or not? And then he says, oh, but there's a third option.
Not whether she does or does not have the capacity to like you, but whether she's pretending to like you.
Pretending to like me.
Yeah.
Well, why would she do that?
I don't know. Maybe if she thought of you as a means of escape.
His delivery is sinister.
Oh, he's just like fake sympathy, like, oh, you're such an idiot. Caleb is so defeated and humiliated and angry. And Nathan then goes into comfort. Oh, man, listen, buddy, your mind has been effed with. And this is where Caleb crosses the line. He says, I'm not the one whose head is effed. Nathan says, I don't know. I woke up to a video of you cutting your arm and like, punching the mirror. He's like making him feel so ridiculous. And Caleb says, you're a bastard. During this sequence, Kyoko approaches Ava's fishbowl and Ava says, who are you? And we're like, oh, something's brewing there.
Yeah, like Ava didn't even know that Kyoko existed.
And you can see on Ava's face disturbance and realization. So then Nathan says, hey, man, I'm going to let you off the hook. He then reveals that he installed a battery-operated camera so that he could observe them during the blackouts. He plays the footage of Caleb revealing to Ava his escape plan. And Nathan says, man, the real test was you. Ava was a rat in a maze. You were her only way out. To escape, she'd have to use self-awareness, imagination, manipulation, sexuality, empathy, and she did it. She manipulated you. You were going to help her. She wins.
Yeah, if that's not artificial intelligence, then what is?
Exactly. And I love that line because none of that proves she was having a conscious experience, but you start to realize there's no way to prove that. So how much closer can you get? Like,
yes,
if you can't tell the difference between a conscious being and a non-conscious being, does it even matter? Well, of course it matters if they're suffering, right? But this is as close as you're ever going to get. And so then Caleb realizes, I wasn't selected for my coding ability. It's my search inputs. And he said, yeah, man, they revealed a good kid with a moral compass, no family, no girlfriend. And that's when Caleb goes, did you design Ava's face based on my pornography profile? Nathan goes, hey, if search results are good for anything, right?
Yeah.
And then he says the most condescending thing. Don't feel stupid. It was a success. It worked.
Yeah, you're still a critical part of this.
Yeah, you're part of this. You're a tool. To me, Resurrection is so full of vengeance that I almost bled the rest of this into Resurrection, but I cut it there because the forces he stirred up when he made this plan with Ava to escape, those forces have been wreaked on him, our hero. This is the peeling away of all the illusion. You've been manipulated the whole time. Everything you did was according to my plan, of course, except one thing, and this is where the hubris of Nathan is about to come into play. But I put the rest of it in Resurrection because this is where the final battle really begins. So that's where I cut off the road back.
Me too.
Oh, good. Wow. We're back in line.
Back in sync. Bye, bye, bye. Resurrection, or the Master of Two Worlds. The hero faces death one more time in a final battle or showdown. This time, the danger is at the apex of the entire story. So Caleb has been laid low. He is embarrassed. He knows now he's been manipulated this entire time. And as Nathan is telling Caleb, hey, don't feel bad. This is still a successful test. You're still a part of it. The power goes out again. And Nathan says, well, it must be 10 p.m. She'll be waiting for you.
What a dick.
And Nathan asks Caleb, what were you planning to do? I heard you say you're going to reprogram the security protocols, but reprogram them to what? And Caleb explains he was going to reverse them. Instead of all the doors in the facility locking down in a power cut, they would open. So there would be full access to everything. And Nathan agrees, yeah, that would have worked. And Caleb says, well, I guess we'll find out. And then Nathan's like, wait, what? What do you mean by that? And now Caleb flips it on Nathan and says,
I figured you were probably watching us during the power cuts. So I already did all those things when I got you drunk yesterday.
Then the power comes back on, and Nathan looks at his computer monitors and he sees Ava wandering the hallway. Oh, expletive deleted.
Yeah.
She's out. Nathan decks Caleb, knocks him out. This is facing death one more time. Symbolic death of the hero. He is unconscious and no longer a part of the story. And Nathan grabs a dumbbell, removes the weights, so he's just got the bar, goes into the hallway where he finds Ava and Kyoko. And Nathan tells Ava, go back to your room. And Ava says, if I do, will you let me out? And he says, yes. But of course, we all know Nathan's a manipulator and full of lies, and she knows this.
Yeah.
She charges him, sprints down the hall, tackles him, and as the two of them are wrestling, Nathan flips over, gets on top of Ava, hits her with the dumbbell, but she raises an arm to defend herself, but the blow knocks her arm off.
Yeah.
While this is happening, Kyoko has slowly sidled up behind Nathan, and as slowly as possible, in a scene that reminded me of the slow stabbing scene in Saving Private Ryan, inserts, I'll say, like one might do a USB stick into a port, a knife into Nathan's back. He stands up and turns around. He's shocked. His creations are turning on him. He hits Kyoko in the head with his dumbbell. It knocks her jaw off. She falls down. You hear this like pew, like almost powering down sound. So Kyoko has been deactivated in some way. But Ava, now behind Nathan, draws the knife out. He turns around and she, in the same way, just very slowly inserts the knife into his chest. Oh, I got cringy when that happened. It just,
you can feel it.
We've all had paper cuts. Remember that sensation of the paper slicing through your finger? Now imagine that it is a 6-inch steel blade being inserted into your body at a very slow speed. Oh my God.
Ow.
Now this is the end of Nathan. He stumbles away, falls down, starts to bleed out.
Yeah.
Ava digs into his pockets, pulls out his key card, and begins her escape. She goes into Nathan's office as Caleb is stirring. He's regaining his consciousness, and he sees her. To me, this was an interesting exchange. It made me question her next steps. She says,
will you stay here?
And he responds,
Stay here.
And she turns around, walks out.
It's worth saying, for some reason, usually when I've seen a movie a dozen times, it's hard for me to remember how I felt when I first watched the movie. But with this movie, I remember distinctly when she walks into that room where Caleb is, I remember going, oh my God, is she going to kill him? And when she spares him, I thought, and through the rest of it, there's no reason. She did not need him to do anything. Because there was nobody who was going to escape the facility to rat her out. She doesn't kill him. She assumes he'll find a way out. I mean, she locks him down, but I
don't know that she assumes he will find a way out.
Maybe not.
I don't think so. And the reason I'm asking the question, and we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, because she leaves, and because of the lockdown protocol,
right,
he's trapped. He cannot escape this subterranean area, so doomed to death. My question was, in my head, was when she says, will you stay here? A question to him. His response is not a question back or a response in the negative, because it is not one of those things, she, as an AI, says, okay, if Caleb does not say, no, I will not stay here, then he will stay here. Therefore,
I don't have to kill him.
I leave him here, not bring him with me or kill him. Was her intent to lock him inside? Does she know he will starve to death if she locks him inside? Is she killing him by not bringing him with her? And does she know that? That was the question that I'm left with at the end of this movie, but we're not at the end of the movie yet, so I'm getting ahead of myself. But so she says that, will you stay here? Then she goes into Nathan's bedroom, opens up those mirrored cabinets that you discussed earlier. Some of them still have their like skin suits on, and there's this scene of her peeling the flesh off of the decommissioned chassis in these cabinets and applying the skin to herself, turning herself in as human as she can possibly look.
Yeah.
She puts on a wig that is not the short buzz cut wig that she's been wearing. Now it is a long, flowy, wavy brown hair. She puts on a white frilly dress. And without a word to Caleb, who's still kind of stumbling around in a daze, not knowing what the heck is going on, she walks out that final secured door and it closes behind her. And she goes to the elevator as Caleb screams, pounding on that door, but it is soundproofed, so she can't hear him.
Yeah.
And as the elevator door closes, just for a second, she glances over at Caleb.
Yeah.
She's aware that he's still here and trapped. But does she know he's going to die? Does she know that she has condemned him to death? Is it intentional? Or was it just she doesn't understand what she has done to him, and is she sinister in this moment? Or is she innocent by ignorance?
I don't think it's a given that he's going to die.
Why not?
Because a guy that rich would have a plan to be checked on in case of some kind of an emergency.
Nathan thinks he's invincible. Nathan thinks he's invincible.
You're making a lot of assumptions about his ability to code and figure computer shit out. So I think you can...
Whose ability? Caleb's or Nathan's?
Caleb's. You can express an opinion that you don't think he had a way to survive, but
That's what I'm doing.
I think it's left open to the viewer to make that decision. And when she looks over at him, to me, if he was done, why would she look over at him? So to me, she's leaving. She's given him a chance. You're saying there's a chance. So I think it's cool. I think we both agree it's more interesting that she didn't kill him in that scene because but the only reason it's more interesting is because then what happens? And we don't know.
Right.
That's oh my God. Like Steven Spielberg would have tied it all up.
And if she glances at him as the elevator door is closing with him trapped behind that security door.
Yeah.
And knows that he has no way out and therefore is going to die, does that make her more sinister than had she just killed him in Caleb's bedroom before putting on the human guise and leaving him there to die a slow, agonizing death? That makes her more evil than...
Well, you bring up a great question of, is she sinister or is she simply... So I think this film has an odd feminist undertone too. And I'm not bringing this up for political reasons, but it reminded me of that line that Laura Dern says in Jurassic Park. God creates man, man destroys God. Dinosaurs eat man, woman inherits the earth.
Right.
This sort of jokey thing that the violence of men it will eventually end them, right? The creation of dinosaurs is an act of hubris, and then that's what destroys them. Yep. So like in this movie, one thing you skipped over that's not, I don't think it's relevant to the hero's journey, but I don't think you mentioned this. Whatever, when after the stabbing, Nathan knocks off Kyoko's jaw, right, revealing her more of her robotic insides.
I mentioned that.
You did, okay.
Yeah.
So like, there's a theme here of trapping women and violence toward women, and Caleb isn't guilty of it, but he is guilty of misjudging or infantilizing this superintelligence. And so even though he didn't do an act of violence against her, he didn't respect her as a intelligent entity. He misjudged her, and that was his downfall. And I think that's why he ends up trapped there.
Oh,
because
man, I'm not sure I agree with that. If Ava were completely human, everybody knows that she's 100% human. If that were the case, if this were a movie about a guy finding a woman trapped in a building and wanting to help her escape just because she's a human trapped against her will, does that make him, is he infantilizing her because he's trying to help her escape? Is he not respecting her intelligence because she's been trapped in this place and he has to be the one to help her escape from his side of the wall?
Well, I guess from Ava's perspective, if he was so easily manipulated by Nathan when he wasn't trapped in a box, then would he be a liability to her? It's an interesting question because it points to if Ava is human, if she is so intelligent that she's indistinguishable from a human, except for her obvious intelligence advantages, is that a question about her morality?
And can an artificial intelligence have morality?
Right.
Is morality a uniquely human thing?
And if she did...
Because animals, we look at animals, we don't think of animals as having morality, right? Animals kill each other all the time because it's an instinctual thing they have to eat. An animal doesn't kill another... A wolf doesn't kill a deer and think, oh boy, I feel really bad about this, but my family's hungry and we need to eat.
Sure, but right. But I think in the same way humans misunderstand the motivations of other humans, we anthropomorphize, certainly pets. Mm-hmm. We'll say, oh, that's a bad dog. Look how aggressive it is. And that's a good dog. Look how cuddly it is. So I think our expectations of things that are not human, right? We're putting expectations on. But again, the genius of this movie is that we're having this conversation. You and I, who close watch movies multiple times and pull them apart, still have differing opinions about the ending of this film, which is why the ending is so brilliant, because it makes you think.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? And, this is a 10-year-old movie now, so ahead of its time. And more than, I feel like most films about AI are, with the exception of the Spielberg movie, which is fraught with his optimism, which is great. That's a legitimate point of view. But I think of Terminator, the Terminator series of the AI is going to turn evil and get us.
Right.
There's a strong argument that that it's all about survival for her, that she's a trapped person and she wants to survive. And maybe she can't trust Caleb because she can't trust the only men she's known either pitied her or objectified her. So she's like, I got to get out of here. If I leave, no one knows I'm not human, and then I stand a chance. But because you're a threat. I don't know. It's so great.
Even that is assuming an awful lot about her conception of what she is.
Yeah.
And what Nathan and Caleb are. How does she know that Nathan and Caleb aren't the same thing that she is in some way? They've not proved that they're human to her or that they're not artificial intelligence to her.
Yeah.
So,
but on some level, it's so great. There's so many questions to be spun out of this movie. Yeah. And again, top 5 for me. I've met people who thought this movie was sort of like, and I'm like, I don't get it, man. This is like, I can get why you wouldn't like this movie, but I don't get how you couldn't be passionate one way or the other. It's just so powerful. And everything that Alex Garland makes is so intentional and so specific. He doesn't make an accidental movie. And I think he's like Spielberg in that way, where if you watch a Spielberg movie, you can like it or not like it, but you're watching the movie he intended to make. Whereas I think a director like Christopher Nolan, I think he's more like a Pollock, where he's compelled to do this thing, and I don't think he's 100%. I don't think everything that he makes is 100% intentional. I think it bubbles up. I don't know. There's some difference that I can't quite. Kubrick was this way. You saw exactly what he wanted to see, and you could not like it, but he made that dish, and he knew what you would taste. And he doesn't care whether you like it or not. This is what he made. I don't know. I think Alex Garland is an underappreciated, and he's not just a genius, he's a genius craftsman. So you've got the raw artistic talent, and you've got this incredible level of craft that I think sets him apart from other directors of his generation. I'm in love. I love the guy. I totally would have set Ava free. There's several
references to development of the atomic bomb, to Oppenheimer in this movie, and those are no accident. Those aren't just because Caleb is quotable Caleb. The development of the atomic bomb has been seen as the most recent and potentially deadly to humanity scientific advancement of the 20th century. And the development of artificial intelligence, true artificial intelligence, is feared to be the next one.
The existential threat to humanity.
And that is why movies like even Terminator exist. The machines are going to become self-aware, see humans as a threat, and destroy us. The Matrix, same thing.
Right. Yeah. Shall I move on to Return with the Elixir?
Probably.
Okay. So, Return with the Elixir. The hero, having won some precious treasure or reward, now returns to the ordinary world to share the spoils of battle. Like Hitchcock, who killed his hero in the middle of Psycho and totally flipped the script on us, Caleb is not free to live. He's trapped in this house. Whether he gets out or not after the story ends is sort of irrelevant and up for speculation. But who is free to live is Ava. She puts on this white dress. I don't think it's a mistake that it's a white dress.
And it's not the dress that she told Caleb she would wear on their date.
Nope.
This is a completely different dress that we've never seen before.
She doesn't have cute short hair, and she's not wearing a cardigan. She is no longer the hipster girlfriend that Caleb would have had. She puts on a beautiful, lush, long brown hair wig and a white dress, and she slowly walks through the compound, almost delighted by what she sees. She's taking it in. Look at this architect of nature.
Yeah.
And
not almost delighted. She smiles.
Yeah.
She's visibly delighted.
And then she gets to the exit and she steps outside. And it's a demented echo of Caleb's fantasy because she's delighted to be outside, but it's not black and white. It's in color. In his fantasies, it's still black and white when she's outside. But now she's outside and she's seeing, she's walking through the woods and she's touching the plants and feeling the sensation. I mean, she is reborn. She's experiencing the world for the first time.
Yeah. In her fantasy, when he's explaining the Mary in the black and white room story, she's imagining herself in color outside.
Yes, but
now this is coming true.
In his fantasies, it's all in black and white.
Correct.
Interesting distinction.
Mm-hmm.
The last part we see of Caleb is him pounding the stool against the plexiglass, trying to break through and get to the elevator, and he can't. So the helicopter that was supposed to carry Caleb back to New York picks up Ava instead. And then we see this shot of the floor of a concrete plaza outside an office building, and we see shadows. And it's an upside down shot. So we shadows going one way or another, and then we see her shadow appear, and we cut to her, human looking, in new clothes, looking around at the world. This is her freedom to live. End of movie.
Here's what I want to know.
Yeah.
She charges her batteries via induction plates in the facility.
Yep.
So is Ava living the freedom as long as she can until her batteries run out and then she essentially dies? Or is I mean, we've talked about it in previous episodes. That's the great thing about movies ending this way.
Yeah.
It's left to the viewer. Does she somehow find some way of charging her batteries so that she can continue living in perpetuity? Or is this the end for her? Does she have 24 hours of battery life and then she's going to collapse in the middle of the street someday and EMTs are going to rush to her and try to do CPR, and then they're going to do an MRI scan on her and realize, what? This is all circuits. And then boom. Oh my God. What was this thing? Who was this
And then
girl?
when someone eventually goes to Nathan's compound and finds him stabbed, a robot girl with her jaw flopped off, and Caleb either dead from starvation or missing or what, like how all that. But I wonder, like, okay, so you're Ava and you're that smart. It seems like you would spend your resources finding another way to charge before you were like, let's find a change of clothes, right? So like, what does that mean that she's different clothes on? Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode on Ex Machina, one of my favorite movies. If you enjoyed this show and you're interested in and able to support the podcast, we invite you to go to patreon.com/Heroes Journey Podcast. At the beginning of the year, this year, Dan and I met in person, to enjoy beverages together, and this is only something we get to do a couple of times a year.
Yeah.
And we talked about how we could add value for our patrons. And the first new benefit we've implemented is a Discord server that's available to all patrons of all tiers. So check out if you're a patron, check out your email for your invitation, and then hop on Discord. It's been really cool already to interact with the fans like off the Patreon page, and like I've been sharing pictures of the BD1 Lego thing that I did. We're exchanging memes. We were talking about merch, and the patrons were making fun of us a little bit. So it's been a lot of fun. So please.
Wait, who's making fun of us?
You need to read the Discord more carefully.
What the?
I think it's Kalikas. Who's been poking a little fun. All good-natured. So please, if you're not familiar with Discord, download it and join us. We'll see you there.
Please share the Heroes Journey podcast with your friends. Follow us on Blue Book. Like, subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast app. And now you can also find the Hero's Journey on Audible.
If you are a psycho sex robot, please don't join us, though. We don't need any of that bad mojo in our lives. Thank you to all the patrons who made this show possible, including our demigod patrons, John Peterson Jr., Scott Sanford, Ricky Garvin, Jeff Scott, Joseph Wilbur, Michelle Calderon, Ami Garvin, Salathiel Jones, Jasmine and Pete Hudson, Mike and Mrs. Zarzana, Randy Sparks, and Jason Purvis.
Special thanks to Taylor Jordan for composing the Hero's Journey theme, and to Jason Dorff for our artwork. Links to their portfolios can be found on the About page of heroesjourneypodcast.com.
Ex Machina is copyright 2014 Universal City Studios Productions. Thanks again for listening. Until next time,
journey on!